Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. So you're about to see me maneuvering a bunch of stuff around real fast, so we have more room to actually put an engine in and start putting suspension and everything else on it. So you can see there's the body shell, there's the frame, because it was behind the body shell. So like I said, last nice day of the season, it's late October and it's like 71 out. And then it's going to start dropping into the 30s and 40s next week. So we took the dart out as well, stretched its legs out. Now we're about to see if we can drop the engine in. I need to make a cross member or cut up one that I have and make it work. I got an idea. I'm going to see if we can make it fly or not. And then hopefully when I get the engine and transmission mounted in, transmission is a core at this point. It's there just for purposes of making a cross member. The engine's ready to drop in, but we'll drop it in and we'll end up taking it back out because then I need to put the frame under the car so I can do some of the back sheet metal work. And then we got to do a bunch of other work to the body shell before we ever can really mount the engine up permanently. But anyway, I want to fit up so I can do the transmission cross member now and get the front suspension and rear suspension back in. Rear suspension is just going to be the old rusty rear axle, just to roll it around for now. We'll make sure we don't damage the paint, any of that stuff. Use the old control arms, things like that, until I get the 9-inch all ready to go. But the front suspension will be in permanent, and I want the engine and transmission in there for the weight, so we can, do the old trick of put the jack under the lower control arm, jack it up, so that way we can kind of compress the spring a little bit. And then we can get the nut started, so we can bolt the front suspension up. Because we are running single adjustable shocks in the front, I really don't feel like grinding the crap out of my control arm, so I'm going to try it that way to see if we can get it to work or not. Try. But anyway, that'll be a different video. Today's purposes is to drop the engine in, show you how I'm dropping it in, and get a cross member made. The first problem I ran into is I'm going with this style of mount setup. So these, and I bought these polyurethane ones here from Summit Racing. These are actually Summit Racing's house brand. I'm sure they're made by Prothane or somebody. But the problem I have is with this plate, it mounts like this. And yeah, air compressor's in the way. I was hoping to use the AC compressor, to have AC in the car at some point. But looks like I'll have to buy an aftermarket setup to make it work. So we're going to ditch the air compressor and the bracket for right now, and we will bolt up, the driver's side and passenger side and bolt the mounts on. And I need to powder coat. Hang on. Let's walk over here. Show you the motor mounts, the engine or the frame mounts I'm using. So the frame mounts are these. I got these off eBay. These are for a 1966, 1967, like Chevelle, El Camino, that kind of deal. So these will mount, I don't remember how, but anyway, I'll get these powder coated today. We'll get these bolted onto the frame too. And then we can drop the engine in place, because they will bolt on like that, and then we can set the engine in place. So I'm using these. Like I said, I paid like 55 bucks with shipping and everything. I've sandblasted them. I'm going to powder coat them up. These you can buy for like 20 bucks for these plates, and I don't remember how much I paid for the urethane set. This was about a year ago from Summit Racing, knowing what I was going to do, and they were having a Summit Racing sale as well. So I got these on a really good deal. So that's what we're gonna do. Let me get everything bolted up, and we'll come back after we get everything powder coated, and I'll show you where we're at. So just real fast, guys. So here is my power steering bracket. It's all nicely powder coated and everything. But the one thing you notice is missing is the power steering pump. I got 2 of them over there from the last U-pull, all you can U-pull day. I've grabbed 2 of those. I'm gonna basically take it apart, reseal one of the pumps up, paint it up nice, and then we will bolted in here, and we'll see how that also clears to the, the steering gear box, which I've got all painted up and ready to bolt in as well. So we'll probably bolt that up and check, the clearance to some stuff. All right, guys, so this is pretty simple to install. You get 4, fasteners here to install. I already got the motor mount on, but you get 4 of them. Basically, my hardware kit, came with, the Allen head style black fastener. And you also get the fasteners for the motor mount with the plates. So I was able to bolt the mount on. Everything lined up really nice. I put a dab of blue Loctite on each one of these fasteners, so hopefully they don't vibrate their way loose. Now let me go ahead and just do the other side, and then I need to get to powder coating those mounts for the frame, and then we will get the engine off the lift here, put it on the hoist, and or the cherry picker, grab a transmission, bolt it up, and set it in place and see what we got to do. Well, guys, ran into a little problem last night. Yeah. When you see the girls do the dresses, it don't fit. Anyway, so these are 3.5 inch wide. This is 3 5/8 inches wide. I learned last night that small block Chevrolets have multiple different sizes. They have, I think it was 2 3/8, 2.5, 2 5/8, and 2 9/16. So, Advanced Auto, I had a $5 off coupon, 15% off. So I ended up picking 2 of these cheap rubber mounts up for $8.06. So for at least mock-up purposes, we will bolt these on, and then they fit over the, you can see they fit. So we now will powder coat these mounts here, get them bolted to the frame, swap these mounts off, and then get a transmission over here, probably that one. Get that transmission connected to the engine so we can set it in place and figure out our cross member. Yeah, wish I'd knew more about this. So these will either sell these off or throw these in the junk drawer until, maybe I need them for some project in the future. All right, guys, so we got the motor mounts, or the frame engine mounts bolted in. Powder coat turned out really nice. I set the cross member in place, just kind of thinking about what I want to do. All right, guys, so we've got the engine and transmission mated up. That's kind of a pain in the butt. You would think it would have been easier, but it wasn't. I'm missing a dowel pin on this side, so just for fitment, we'll be fine. Getting ready to lift it up and over now. We'll set the transmission on that once we try to get the engine mounts lined up and at least a bolt in there to hold them in place. So the way it's listing, right, the engine's kind of cocked to one side here, so we'll try to put that one in first and then gently set it down and stick that one in, and then we'll figure out what we got to do back there for a cross member. It's going to be fun because where I have the jack stand supporting the frame, we're kind of in the way for the engine hoist, so that's going to add another bit of fun. But I have to have the jack stands forward, because if I set them right in the back, then frame could, come up on me, and we don't want that. Yep, according to plan. Not. So I got this jack stand here now. I got that jack stand moved. And yes, I am damaging my paint, but well, sometimes, stuff happens. All right, guys, so it is sitting in here. Got the bolts in the mounts there, as you can see, sticking out. So yeah, I'm gonna put a board under there and a jack so I can jack it up and figure out, where to put the cross member and start figuring that out. But yeah, next time I think we'll do the engine and maybe the transmission separate. That was not fun. Or get one of those better leveling setup than what I was doing. That's probably the better idea yet. Just a slight amount of paint damage, just a little scuffing. Actually, this stuff held up pretty darn good. So I'll just touch up those spots once I get the engine back out. All right, guys, so little update. So we've got it in here, you know, like I mentioned earlier. If you notice though, oops, let me get the camera down in there. We barely have clearance all pan to the cross member there. You can see just a little bit of daylight. So then I started cutting up, and by the way, I've got my angle finder here, and I'm running about 2 to 3 degrees down on the engine. You know, and I've got the jack under the transmission pan to kind of give me that angle that I'm looking for. By the way, the frame is level at this point. And so the cross member, the original cross member, sat about where that board is, all right? About, you know, that angle or that level, I guess. This is up about a ½ an inch, basically the width of my fingers, my little sausages here. So we got about a ½ an inch roughly clearance to that board. So the original sat down a little bit further. So I'm hoping we won't have any clearance problems to the transmission tunnel at all. So now I need to figure out how am I going to, you know, do this. I want to be able to, like I said, kind of run the exhaust under there. So, you know, in reality, if I were to do a straight tube, you know, straight across and then cut it, you know, and cut it, then I could have a, you know, piece that I could unbolt and bolt. Yeah. Anyway. Let me do a little thinking. I'm messaging a buddy of mine, getting some feedback, because what I thought about doing is welding a plate here, and then, you know, have maybe a small angle of some tubing that I could then, you know, bolt together to that plate that I weld on the end. So I'm trying to figure this out, or I may just have to make a custom piece altogether. We'll see. All right, guys, a little update. So got my actual angle finder out, and you can see I've got basically 0.3 degrees here. So the frame's basically level. That board is level, you know, from this direction. The engine is set at 3 degrees down. If this was a carbureted engine, that's where we would kind of want it. Depending on, we would actually want to measure it on the flat of the intake manifold, but I measured it on the flat of that valley pan there. And in reality, with the fuel injection engine, I could run at 0 because it's fuel injected. But we are going to run a 3 degree, because if I try to run, you know, 0, right, this tail shaft has to come way up, and it'll come up, you know, a good, you know, inch. You know, to get 0. So that won't give me any clearance to the tunnel. So we're going to run 3 degrees. If you notice to the board here, right, there's basically, I don't know, how thick is that? 3/16. So we're talking maybe, I don't know, close to ½ inch. So that should be, I believe, I wish I'd have taken some measurements before I put these bars in and stuff, but I believe this sat to where this board is. So I needed to sit down a little lower because of floor pan clearance here. So I tried to take some measurements, and so what I'm going to do is, and actually, this actually had 2 spacers, believe it or not. And I put a new transmission mount in too. That way everything's nice and solid. This is a polyurethane mount. So what I think I'm going to do is take this pile of steel and make one. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to weld this tab here and another tab over there. And then this, right, I got to cut it down a little bit, because by the time I weld it, there won't be that space there, although they fit nice and perfect together. You know, we'll drill a couple holes here, and then I will basically take this and kind of come up, go over, come down, go across, right? Come up, come over, come down, like so, and then basically make this a bolt on. And I got a piece of, a bigger piece of flat steel like this left over that I can use for the mount. So that's kind of where we're at. So probably what I'm going to start with is cutting down a piece of the flat to go from basically here to here. That will be my, you know, kind of my end point for the exhaust cutout. This, by the way, you can see is plenty sturdy. You know, it's 1/8 inch thick, probably I think it's about 1.25 inches. You know, flat by, I don't know what, 5/8 of an inch. So this is some nice heavy, you know, rectangular tubing. So like I said, we'll basically cut it down, you know, short, and then I'll weld a couple pieces, weld it, you know, and the idea is I'll weld it right to there like that. I want to make sure this comes down basically, you know, a good 3/4 of an inch lower than the top of this. That way it gives me plenty of room, you know, to the floor pans. And it should give me, you know, if you look at the distance between here and here, I think it's like, I'll have to measure it, but it's a good inch, 1.25 maybe. So if I can basically this be to the top of here, or just, that's kind of what I'm shooting for. With the 5/8 of an inch thick, you know, it should be over 1/2 inch lower, you know, so that way I get more floor pan clearance to all this. So anyway, I know I've talked a lot. Let's just take a bunch of pictures and show you what the end product looks like. Guys, so I welded it all up, and you know, I need to do a little cleaning up of the welds, but I do have a concern that maybe these, you know, might be a little tall. I'm not sure. You know, the floor pan in that area is nice and flat. You know, we'll find out, I guess, once we you know, set the body on, and then I can bolt this from underneath. I'm not going to weld those in just yet in case I have to do stuff, you know, but I welded this out just because, you know, if it doesn't work, then I'll come up with a different solution. Anyway, let me go ahead and we'll clean that up, get it painted, bolt it back in, and then you can see the final product. All right, guys, so here is the cross member, all ground down, cleaned up. So she turned out pretty nice. There's a few areas I'm not going to grind, like in here, or, you know, in these V areas, right? I'm not going to try to grind down in there. Going to clean it up a little bit. There's a little bit of weld splatter here. I'm going to go ahead and I'll try to hit off some of those little slag pieces. And then I'm going to hit it with some epoxy, or not epoxy, primer, etching primer. And so we'll etch it, and then I'll go ahead and just rattle can it with some black, and we'll bolt this sucker in. She should clear. you know, we'll find out. I tried to keep it short. So we will, we'll find out if, yeah, if it'll work. So, but that is my cross member made out of scrap pieces that I had lying around in here in the shop. So it didn't cost me anything. And honestly, you know, a couple of feet, you know, probably, I don't know, 5-6 feet of, you know, this material would do real good, and a small little piece of 3/16, and you could make something very similar for next to nothing. So anyway, let's go ahead and spray it, and then we'll show you the final product bolted in. And just so you guys know, you know, these are not butted together. These are actually overlapped, okay? So what I did, for example, was this piece, let's say, I think this piece comes up and then this sits on top. So I kind of notched it real tight here and then here, and took out, you know, this piece of this one, and then this piece sat on top of it. And that way I was able to weld all the way around it, and then, you know, weld like here and across. So that way I have a lot of surface, you know, area to weld to make this real nice and tight and strengthened. And the same thing down here. For example, this piece again, I cut this corner out. I left this little sliver here and then basically cut it out. So that way I can weld here, 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 across here, you know, on both sides, and have a nice, you know, a lot of surface area to weld. So a lot of strength in the weld as well. So that's how I welded this thing up. Anyway, let's get out the etching primer, primer it, top coat it, and bolt it in. Guys, there it pretty much is. Yeah, granted, I need to final weld these tabs in and paint them, you know, for the frame, and touch up the paint there, but there's the cross member, pretty much completed. You know, it looks a little funky because of the paint, but I'll paint it one more time, and so it looks a little more even and nice. That, and I got my paws on some wet paint when I was trying to touch up a couple spots. But anyway, you get the idea. Hopefully this will clear the floor pan. We'll find out when we go to set the body back on. The engine transmission won't be in place, so I'll set the body on with the body mounts, and then I'll take the transmission mount and set it up on there, and hopefully it fits. Because I tried to take some measurements and stuff, tried to make sure it would clear. I guess we'll find out if it does or not. I'm really hoping it does, because that that floor pan is pretty flat in that area, so I'm hoping this works. So there you go, guys. Yeah, you can see what motor mounts I'm running, what mounts I had to buy to swap, you know, this, my LS engine into my Pontiac frame. It's pretty much the same as a Buick or an Oldsmobile, or Chevelle, you know, any of those GM frames. So that gives you an idea of what I did to swap, like I said, the mounts, and what I did to fabricate my own up, because like I said, I made my own side reinforcements, you know, and boxed in this frame and everything all on my own, you know, no kits or nothing. This is all, you know, budget stuff. I had a bunch of scrap lying around to make the cross member, and that's what I made. You know, I got just a little bit of welding gas and time into making this. Like I said, it's just a bunch of scrap metal I had. So anyway, guys, I hope this gives you an idea of what you need to swap your LS into your GMA body frame, and you know, maybe make your own trans cross member instead of going out and buying somebody else's for $100, $200, whatever they run. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and we will see you on the next upload.